O God, praise waiteth for thee, and to render it is my noblest exercise. This is thy due from all thy creatures, for all thy works display thy attributes and fulfill thy designs. The sea, dry land, winter cold, summer heat, morning light, and evening shade are full of thee, and thou givest me them richly to enjoy. Thou art King of kings and Lord of lords. At thy pleasure empires rise and fall. All thy works praise thee, and thy saints bless thee. Let me be numbered with thy holy ones. Resemble them in character and condition. Sit with them at Jesus' feet. May my religion be always firmly rooted in thy word, my understanding divinely informed, my affections holy and heavenly, my motives simple and pure, and my heart never wrong with thee. Please, Lord, deliver me from the natural darkness of my own mind, from the corruptions of my heart, from the temptations to which I am exposed, from the daily snares that attend me. I am in constant danger while I am in this life. Let thy watchful eye ever be upon me for my defense. Save me from the power of my worldly and spiritual enemies, and from all painful evils to which I have exposed myself. Until the day of life dawns above, let there be unrestrained fellowship with Jesus. Until fruition comes, may I enjoy the earnest of my inheritance and the firstfruits of the Spirit. Until I finish my course with joy, may I pursue it with diligence, in every part display the resources of the Christian, and adorn the doctrine of Thee, my God, in all things. Good morning, family. It's Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. This morning we're looking at 1 Samuel chapter 26. In it, we see Saul once again in pursuit of David. David and his, I guess you could call it his commander, or one of the members of his war council, Abishai. He and David go down to Saul where he is camping, and everyone in camp is asleep. And David and Abishai sneak in, spare Saul's life once again, and take Saul's spear and a jug of water as evidence that they could have done Saul harm, but chose not to. And David makes another appeal to Saul, asking, he says in verse 18, "Why then is my Lord pursuing his servant? For what have I done? Or what evil is in my hand?" And he appeals to Saul again to consider why it is he's pursuing him in the first place. And once again, we see Saul acknowledging his sin. Verse 21, then Saul says, "I have sinned. Return, my son, David, for I will not harm you again, because my life was precious in your sight this day. Behold, I have played the fool and have committed a serious error." So we see him acknowledging his sin once again, and David is able to go on his way. Something to note is verse 23. David gives a glimpse of some of the depth of thought and his understanding of God that we come to understand and read about throughout the Psalms. He says, "The Lord will repay each man for his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord delivered you into my hand today, but I refused to stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed." And it is true. Each man will be repaid for his righteousness. Whether you're standing before God on the day of judgment, clothed in your own righteousness like filthy rags, or clothed in the righteousness of Christ, will you be judged by your own ability to keep the law and be a quote good person, or will you be judged by Christ's faithfulness to go to the cross and bear the wrath? One thing I want us to really note this morning is, again, how David responded to his enemies. I think that's very relevant to us. I think Christians who don't recognize that they have both, and we just prayed this prayer in the prayer today. Christians who don't recognize that they have both worldly and spiritual enemies, they're in grave danger. Our enemies are always knocking on the door. They're at the gate. They are. They're in our own hearts. They're in our minds, and they're in this world around us. And we need to be willing to acknowledge that the Christian life is a life of warfare. It's constant warfare. There is no time in this life when you do not need to be aware and acknowledge the fact that sin and temptations are always lurking. And so, while it is true that we have peace in Jesus Christ, we find our rest in Him. And we can trust in Him, knowing that He's going to deliver us, and He does deliver us. The truth is, in this life, this side of heaven, the sin is always lurking. The temptation is always, it's always there. It's always a step away. And we have to be aware of that and make war. But we do it the way David is doing it now, oftentimes. Yes, it's true that as a nation, we see God physically going out and having Israel destroy their enemies. But man to man, woman to woman, Romans 12 gives us a good picture of what David's doing this morning. Okay, so if you want to turn to Romans 12, start with verse 14, it says this: Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep. Be of the same mind toward one another. Do not be haughty in mind, but associate with the lowly. Do not be wise in your own estimation. Never pay back evil for evil to anyone. Respect what is right in the sight of all men. If possible, so far it depends on you, be at peace with all men. Never take your own revenge, beloved, but leave room for the wrath of God, for it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. But if your enemy is hungry, feed him, and if he is thirsty, give him a drink, for in doing so you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And this is our response, to those worldly enemies we sometimes encounter. The way we make war is with love. We love our enemies. We love our neighbor as ourselves. And I want to encourage you to consider this and meditate on this today. And I just want you to know that I love you all, and I pray you have a blessed day. I pray that that homeschool goes well, that you young men are engaged and diligent in doing your duties, and I pray you have a wonderful day today. I love you all very much. Bye-bye.